And home ownership was not a big deal until it was a big deal.
Some moment, the pressure point that they go, you know what, let's buy a house now.
And I think I partly finished school at that time, working
Right.
full time. So really again, I started saving when I was about 16. I still remember that. And the reason I say that is, and I hated doing it, but I had to be able to enjoy that money, right away seemed very unfair.
I still remember that when I came to Canada first time, my earnings were like just...
And I think it was that moment, like 2 days prior to having to come up with an extra $10, $12, $15,000.
Wow. The struggle has always been real, and it just different looks throughout the generation.
This is your own. I can do whatever I want with it.
Do you believe the home is a wants or needs? Welcome to Once Upon a Time, 100 Cups of Coffee. I'm Madhavan, a realtor, a first-time homebuyer advisor, someone who has lived the dream of owning a home in Canada. This series is simple. I'm sitting with 100 Canadians who were once a first-time home buyer, different years, different market, different cities, and asking them to share their real stories. Because the struggle has always been real. It just looked different every generation. Today, I'm sitting with Chen Raja, a financial advisor and the managing principal of Wellbridge Financial Services. Between his expertise in finance and his own personal journey into homeownership, we have a lot to unpack today. Let's get started. Chen, I'm glad you're here. Let's have a coffee.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Chen, what do you want to say about yourself, people who don't know about you? What do you do and where you are now at your life?
Yeah, I actually got into the financial planning space just about a decade ago or so, and naturally, having worked with a lot of business owners and clients, I naturally had an opportunity to sort of get into the estate planning space. So, estate planning really is just helping people restructure their assets so that when they're ready to pass it on from one generation to the other, it's actually done in a much more tax efficient manner, because whether we like it or not, it's not easy to build wealth. It's obviously very hard, but what is really harder is sometimes you spend a lot of time and energy to build that wealth, but you don't spend the same type of energy to sort of protect what you're building and preserve what you're building. So we educate and empower Canadians right across the spectrum to help make sure that they have all the knowledge and information so that when they're transferring wealth, they can do that in a tax-efficient manner.
It's an amazing concept. I don't want to get into the conversation because people who owns, just my audience is going to be who's going to buy a home in Canada.
Sure.
I'm just looking at the first-time home buyers.
Sure.
I always say that we just always focus on buying a home and we don't think about the rest. We just always in the process of accumulating wealth, but the preservation, nobody thinks about it because most of our energy goes towards buying and, because the time goes and fly and nobody realize, we need to do this, right? So it's absolutely a great conversation to have another time. When did you really decide that you wanted to own a home in Canada?
Yeah, I think just psychologically, just coming from a war-torn country and just sort of really, driving towards the dreams of what another land like Canada can offer. So you had a lot of memories, and home ownership was not a big deal until it was a big deal. And what I mean by that is, we sometimes talk about this, is it a need or a want? We always have this discussion sometimes. I'll be honest, I don't think I have a very specific memory of why I wanted to buy it, but I think it might have been, now that I think about it, it was really the notion that, hey, we were building, we were living in an apartment, and I think we naturally, as we progressed in life, we wanted to maybe own a larger space, enjoy that backyard, and sometimes as certain ages, those kind of desires, naturally sometimes comes in. So I think, again, buying that first home was maybe about 12, 13 years ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow. 2013, something like that?
Yeah, sorry, about 2000, maybe 12 years. It was about 2015, if I'm not mistaken. So so maybe 11 years or so, right? So it feels like many, many years ago. And funny enough, I don't know what led to it. I don't truly remember it, but it was around that time.
You said that because my next question was was there any specific movement or day or something that you decided, you know what, kill it, let's go and buy a house now? Or like, was it like any event like push you? Okay, for example, somebody who I work with right now, who just rent their home at this moment, and they always think paying a lot of money and having some hard time with the landowner, and some moment, the pressure point, that they think, oh, you know what, let's buy a home now.
Yeah, I think two things. One is, we had parents who were obviously growing, and we wanted to make sure, like, they can live in a very comfortable environment. And keep in mind, like, we used to live in a house, and then we had to move back from the house to like a condo or an apartment because of some health concerns that my mom had. So because she wasn't able to walk up and down, but there was a point where we as a family, we were growing, and of course we wanted to make space for that piece of it, as well as just that desire of, hey, like, I want to be able to, home ownership is a dream at the end of the day, right? Whether
Right. True.
in one way, shape, or form. So and like, really, without getting the technicalities of it, it is ultimately one of those feelings that nobody can, like, it's hard to explain it in words, in my opinion. And like,
Absolutely.
so really having gone through that process, I think it was just really being able to provide for the family and be able to take that next step in life. I think that's really the moment. And I think I partly finished school at that time, working
Right.
full time. So really, like, the logical steps where I finished school, working full time, and I saved a little bit, and those are all like factors that led into that moment. But there wasn't like a huge factor, except the fact that, hey, I think we needed more space. And I think I wanted to be able to do something so that my parents, who really worked hard in this country, like, they can also continue to enjoy the notion of a home ownership as well.
When you said, I just touched base on that, you said about saved a little bit. And when it comes to the down payment at that time in 2015, and how much were you able to save, and how would it look like today? I mean, how did you make the payment saving? I mean,
Yeah. So I think, again, I started saving when I was about 16. I still remember that, and the reason I say that is, and I hated doing it, but I had, and fortunate enough, I was
as a financial advisor,
yeah,
now
and
you
I
can
say
say.
I hated it because I used to work at McDonald's, and it was a part-time job, and it was minimum wage, and this was in, again, 15, 18 years ago, maybe, right? When I
Wow.
was, so almost 20 years ago, 16.
Right.
So what that really meant was you were only getting a little bit, and you wanted to live, especially when you're in high school. You wanted to do
Absolutely.
certain things with
Yeah.
friends and all of that stuff, but we were forced to save just because I was surrounded by obviously the right people. It helped
Right.
me, and like, trying to do $50 pack on a biweekly basis. That's what I remember. I know it was
Right.
$25, so $50. Those type of saving mechanism is what led to that larger goal. Almost 8, 9 years later of starting at McDonald's and working part time. And I'll be honest, I don't recall exactly how much, like, the down payment was and all of that stuff, but I definitely know how I got there was saving those biweekly packs.
Right.
I hated doing it just
Right.
because it was, and keep in mind, I could be a financial advisor today, but 20 years ago,
20
like,
years
I
ago.
was just a,
Nobody likes
a, a
saving
normal
money.
16-year-old who wanted to enjoy life and
Right.
enjoy money at the end of the day, right? Like, especially when you're working, because I know when I was 16, my night shift at McDonald's was the first shift ever.
Right.
So I remember some of the hardships that came with it, and then not to be able to enjoy that money, right away seemed very unfair. But and I think, again, I didn't know the concept of delayed gratification at that time.
Right.
But I think, inadvertently, that is exactly the delayed gratification, right? Like, instead of spending it right away, it was the notion of saving as much as you can.
True. You know, actually, immediately connects me to, I don't know, maybe I just wanted to say it out loud. Like we say in Tamil, vayakatti vaitakatti means, like, we always have to make sure that we don't eat what we like,
Yeah.
and we just have to go through the hunger. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying you have to starve,
Yeah.
but like, at the end of the day, you just have to hold yourself towards,
Sure.
saving. I still remember that when I came to Canada first time, my earnings were like I came in 2012, my earnings were like just $1,500 a month, and $1,200 I need to send to Sri Lanka,
Sure.
and then $300 out of
Yeah.
$300, $150 to travel,
Yeah.
and with the just rest of the $150 only, I
Yeah.
get to eat or do anything that I get to do. Whether it's and the phone bill, $75. They're not cheap like today.
Yeah.
No, I hear you. It's really tough, and
Yeah.
people used to think, you know what, those days, the struggle is real, like I said, because people who make money right now, let's say they're making 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, whatever the money, but the inflation is high. At the end of the day, same those days the salary is low.
Of course.
So if you look at that,
Yeah.
like everything looks the same to me.
Sure.
Like, yeah, it's a very interesting point. Was there anything that you said at a point where in the buying process, did you feel like, oh, it's impossible, I just wanted to leave it at this point? Because it happened to me. When I came to Canada, that was the first time my brother wanted to buy a house. And he's totally new to the process, and I'm new to the process. I'm completely new to the process.
Yeah.
And he's going through the mortgage process and everything. He already gave the down payment, and I'm like, to be honest, I went through the real experience, the struggle my brother and my sister-in-law had, and of course I'm also involved in it. They were like almost thinking, you know what, leave it. Let's leave the down payment. I overheard this the conversation they're having it. But at the end of the day, they closed the mortgage. But I just wanted to have. Did you had any sort of that struggle or something like that? Not just specifically about mortgage, anything.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely remember. I think we stayed in a basement temporarily before the closing because we had to leave where we used to live before, but the closing was until another 3 weeks or 4 weeks, so we had to move everything to a basement. So, and it was on Knowles Street in Scarborough. So I remember the street because you remember certain things. And of course, that was my first time going through the experience. I don't think I was knowledgeable enough to maybe research the process a little bit more thoroughly 10, 12 years ago when we were going through the process. And I was waiting for in the next couple of days as closing, and then all of a sudden I realized that the lawyer said, "Hey, bring a check for XYZ."
Okay.
In my head, I'm just like, "Why is the amount so much higher than what I had anticipated for?" And of course, like, of course, like I never factored in, and of course, like I should have known by then because like I should have reasonably assumed for certain things or go through the process. But again, sometimes back in the days, I
don't have Google and ChatGPT to ask, right?
I mean, funny enough, Google was there, if I'm not mistaken, but like information isn't as accessible, and sometimes you're a little bit naive at that point too because you want to go through the process. And I think it was that moment, like 2 days prior to having to come up with an extra $10, $12, $15,000.
Wow.
So it was definitely not easy. Like you know when you feel like you get punched in the gut and you feel very sick to your stomach. I felt it at that moment, and I like distinctly remember it because I lived in the basement. I know which room I was. You remember certain those things,
absolutely.
which makes the in hindsight, 10 years later, it makes the whole process memorable and easy to remember. But it was definitely at that moment when I'm like, holy smokes, am I okay? Am I going to be able to close this house or do it, etc.? I mean, keep in mind, like, I did keep a little bit of extra money because of like emergency funds and that kind of stuff. That like I had the foresight to make sure to keep a little bit of money, but now to almost feel like I am going to walk into this process without any of the money that I would have otherwise had to manage my first few months in the house, because I've also heard at that time sometimes you buy the house and then all of a sudden there's a lot of repairs or things that you have to do, so you want to be ready for those kind of things. So we saved, like I had a little bit of money. It wasn't a lot of money by any means, and keep in mind the house was, I say now, only about $400,000, but at that time that was a lot of money. But so you save in proportion, to that, and you keep some money in proportion to that. So, but yeah, I think it was exactly that moment when I felt very sick to the stomach, to go through the process. And I'll be honest, I think like, and I've at least gone through the process one more time in the later years. I think some of those feelings don't change. Like, in the sense that a closing is a closing. It's by far one of the largest or most important legal responsibility that you're taking, whether it's for the house, whether it's the mortgage, or the number of the mortgage, or the size of the mortgage. So ultimately, that butterfly type feelings will always be there,
Always
and
there.
it's always interesting to go through it.
It's a nice word you said, the butterfly type of effect. Yeah, that's what I was saying. The struggle has always been real, and it just different looks throughout the generation. Like, I mean, same issues that everyone going through, but just
Sure,
the year and everything is changing.
sure.
Uh, just wanted to, when you said that some extra cost and stuff, what made you surprised throughout the process? Like outside of the buying purchase price, what did you feel in the buying process is more expensive, which you didn't even anticipate at all?
I think land transfer tax is
Okay.
something I didn't know at that time, or like I think I might have vaguely remember, but keep in mind there wasn't as explicit education on those types of information very openly at that
Right.
time. At least that's what I felt. Maybe it was there, but I wasn't aware of it. But like I see a lot of home buyers, first time home buyers seminars and that kind of stuff that's happening in
Right.
the space today, which I don't know if it existed at that time or I was just oblivious to it, so I didn't know. Because I was able to factor, and with God's grace, the mortgage process itself was, I say smooth in the sense that we knew along the way, like the
Okay.
updates and those kind of things were
Nice.
helpful. So, but for me, it was almost a closing cost that I didn't factor for, which threw like a wrench in the process. Like for me, that was by far the most surprising part of the process, and partly because I just didn't do my research properly.
We just wanted to get to the question like the process was smooth in the mortgage and all, but like when it comes to the bidding or like pricing the house or just negotiating the price, were you went through any sort of a bidding process? Because if you go back in 2021,
Yeah.
I still remember some of my first time home buyers asked me. The question still is fresh in my head because they asked, is it normal in Canada that always is the over asking is normal?
Yeah.
I said, it's new in Canada. We
Yeah.
never had this. And I don't know, but I just wanted to ask you because when you bought it in 2015, have you ever lost any offer or any house that you liked that you put offer that you didn't get it? Anything, any sort of a memory that you have?
Yeah, it's funny. I haven't gone through the process recently, so I don't, and I think a lot of this is virtual now. I remember being in front of the house because I
Right.
think at that time, if I'm not mistaken, there was times that you get to give the offer. Like
Offer.
every
Yes.
every
Yes.
realtor, I think had a time they
Yeah.
had to submit the offers,
Right.
and there were literally about 4 or 5 cars on the street
Right.
just parked in various
Right.
spots, who all have their time, and then I think the homeowner, the previous homeowner, I think they had a chance to talk to their thing and come back with some questions and negotiations, and then also like the process of giving us an opportunity to come back with a better price. So I remember vague conversations like with the realtor at that time. He's like, hey, like they asked us to come back with a better price. Out of the 4 offers, they eliminated 2 and they kept 2, but it was all in person. So it was all, we were on the streets, and I still
Absolutely.
remember sitting in a car. And keep in mind, like I'm completely new to the process, so it
Right.
was all like a different experience. Like I feel like a lot of people don't get advantage. Like I don't think they get the opportunity to go through that experience
Experience.
today. Like
I just
it's
wanted to add,
yeah.
I couldn't hold myself. It's out of the script or whatever that we want to talk in front of the camera today. But I just wanted to add here. That process that I went through as a realtor, my broker record took me to a multiple offer situation. I think that was the last physical offer presentation, I would say. And after that, the COVID hit, and then we just went to the virtual offer situations. It was so nice, and a lot of agents, and that the streets is fully packed. And I looking at the agents with the blazers and walking here and there, and then the way they come in and say out loud, "Okay, my clients is offering this price, and this is the closing date." Everyone comes in a different tone, and one came out with really confident and very loud, and the way they receive the agent and send off the agent. This is the perspective from the agent side of things.
Sure.
I'm just sitting inside the house and looking at the process, and I felt I really want that back.
Sure.
Maybe that gives more trust opportunity for the buyers as well, because now you don't see who's the buyer. Just see like, okay, the offers coming in. I'm saying, okay, 4 offers, 5 offers, whereas real people are standing outside of the house and coming. It gives more feeling towards the buying, right? So that's what I feel. I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe I'm wrong. So just want to add a question. You said you bought a house in 2015. So when did you come to Canada?
We came in 1999. So we came in 1999. So it was we and then we owned a home prior to that. Our family owned a home prior to that. But again, like I said, because of my mom's health concerns, we had to scale back from the home ownership process and live in a condo apartment just because she couldn't walk up and down the stairs. So, but again, I was very much young at that point that I didn't know the process itself. I don't remember the process at all. So I don't recall any of that. So my official process was the 2015 process that
Process.
I,
So when you land, I mean, it's I don't know the question was valid, but I just wanted to ask it
Hmm.
anyway. When you land in Canada, have you ever thought one day I will own a home in Canada? Because this question is more valid to the people who just coming as an immigrant. I just wanted to add that
Yeah.
question here.
Yeah, like I don't think so. Unfortunately, I say unfortunately, or fortunately, I was much younger, so I don't think the notion of home ownership even really mattered at
Right.
that point. I mean, as a
Because
kid, I don't think it mattered it to us.
I don't know the background that you came in Sri Lanka, but me, I always say probably that I wanted to add the point here. I lived in a village, whereas in 1996 I went through the war and everything. The home ownership is something that I feel like it's very valid. The reason is we were always living under the heavy bomb and all the scary part of Sri Lankan war, and the home living wasn't peaceful as supposed to be a young kid to be living, right? So when I came to Canada, that peace and protection is something mattered to me. Like I felt like I never thought of owning a home. I just sort of thought of, okay, can I settle here and rebuild my life, right? So everyone coming to Canada with a different countries and different aspect, different expectation. People sometimes have a different thought process. Like when they come, oh, just I'm here, I'm happy, and the home buying won't be even there. I never
Yeah.
even thought of buying a house. I just wanted to ask. I mean, some people say, "Oh yeah, I definitely wanted to own a home in Canada. That's my first goal." It's depend on the people perspective, right? So I just
Yeah.
wanted to put the question here. How was owning home made changes in your life? I mean, the feeling of homeowner.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a sense of satisfaction, that I personally had owning the home, and I think it's the notion that hey, like this land belongs to us, and even for me, like the backyard and everything else, like to have some of the features that came with it, and sometimes now that I think about it, I mean, it's not like I couldn't have had that while renting a house, but it's probably also because when we came to Canada, and our experience was we always rented apartments. We never rented homes, so I don't even think the thought of oh yeah you can rent a home existed
Right.
at that time. So that's a because I think about it because it's not like I can't get the feeling of owning like living in a home
Right.
by renting. I could, but I don't think I knew that existed at that time.
Right.
Now that I think about it, because we only lived in apartments, apartments or condos. So in that sense, like the sense of satisfaction that came with it. I still remember, like, especially when we lived in the basement for a little bit, very crammed in with with family, and then moved. That first night, holy smokes! The way you remember
Wow.
that sleeping, like this is like like you can't
Right.
script any of these things, right? Like the questions you're asking, like for me, it's like it invokes real memories
Right.
of like just like that sigh of holy, like you're relaxed and you
True.
want to sleep without knowing what the payments and the challenges
Yeah.
are going to be. Like
Right.
sometimes like just the closing process, moving process, you're done everything, and then to know that hey, like to say that we made it was probably a wrong sense, like to say be like, but I think it was just that
Feeling.
just like to be like hey, like we were able to do it. Yeah, it was definitely hard, but like we were able to do it. And
I would say it's a different side of a butterfly effect. Same, the previous butterfly effect that you had, it was about the process, and now it's like a
Yeah,
different sense of a
of
butterfly.
course,
Yes.
of course.
Right. So I just wanted to add another question there. What was your the reaction when you just bought the same house that you saw end up buying it? For example, like you said, you lived in an apartment. Was your house was like first home was it detached, or like what sort of a house was it with the backyard and everything, or like because coming from an apartment to
Yeah.
a different house, what was your first
Yeah,
reaction?
I mean, the sense of satisfaction was there, but straight, I just thought about something and I lost my train of thought. But um, I think it's the notion that this is your own. I can do whatever I want with it. Like that type of feeling definitely resonated well with me, and I think to be able, it felt like a sense of accomplishment more than anything else. So definitely from that perspective, it was very much an appealing process at that
Right.
point.
What did you first do when you got the key on your hands? Like, I know, like every community, every background has their own thing of doing. I mean, in our community, we just take it to the temple and just do the puja and stuff like that. What was your first thing?
Yeah.
that you-
So I think I remember what I was exactly going to say from your previous question, but for the longest time, what I used to do is once we bought the house before closing, almost at least 2 or 3 times a week we would drive and we would actually stay in front of the house and watch the house. So like far away, obviously, but like we would look at the house like during that entire waiting period of closing. So
Right.
that's something I resonated, remembered going through the process.
That's actually a nice thing.
Yeah.
Like we just go and see like we're
Yeah.
looking at a girlfriend and something
Yeah,
like that.
it's not like anything changed, but
Yeah.
it's just that feeling of hey, like just
Yeah.
the happiness you get with
Wow.
that is very cool. Yeah, for me it was. I think my mom was again very much religious, so I think the first thing we did is we didn't go to the temple with the key, but we would bring like a sami padam to the house and like light up a candle, like clean up and light up the candle in the kitchen because I know kitchen is very much something that is obviously auspicious in many ways. So to be able to have the sami padam and then be able to light up a candle for that is something that I remembered.
You almost covered the answer that I'm just going to ask you next question. Have you had any moment that like you live through the house and you feel like, oh, this the struggle is worth it. I am the having this house is really worth it. Have you had a moment?
Yeah, I think we personally, that's the same house where I got married
Wow.
in. So it's like a lot of memories were
Wow.
made at the house. My first, our little first dog was, from the house. So you remember certain memories that
Do you still
relates to
have
the
the home
house.
or you sold it?
We still have the home. We still
Nice.
have the home. So
That's nice.
again, like we've contemplated, should we get rid of it? Like even when like sort of, and this is where maybe the financial planner side of things, contradicts, logic versus emotional, attachments. To certain things, and I say that because we've contemplated. Hey, when the markets were pretty hard, we're like, hey, should we actually sell the property just to be
Right.
able to capitalize on certain things? But it was also then that emotional attachment. Hey, this was that first property we worked so hard to build, and
Absolutely.
do we want to sell it or not? So, if in hindsight, maybe I should have sold it with everything else that's happening today. But hey, like just from an emotional perspective, funny enough, even now we actually drive by the home at least once every 2 3 months. Like now that I have daughters, I would take them and show them, hey, this was Appa's first home. So like for us, like and not to get overly attached to the material things in life, but whether we like it or not, I think it brings a sense of satisfaction. And for me, it was the notion that, and it didn't come easy. That I can tell you that. So because it didn't come easy, it just felt like it was worthwhile having, and for our family to be able to carry that legacy, like it all for me started with that home.
No, that legacy thing. I always, I'm a strong believer of home is a sanctuary, because since I'm coming from the background in Sri Lanka, we own a home permanently. That's our forever home. We don't like keep on selling and stuff. I know it's completely different in financial perspective in Canada, but like we used to be at trust by the house. This is like military's house, ex-military's house, a postmaster's house, and something like that. And the memories that I lived through my home, I miss that. I mean, the bangers that I played, I still remember that I shared the story there in the one of the video. I used to, there always a permanent bunker there. Just I played with the mirror and I broke it, and then I just went to my mom and asked, "Hey, did you see any cat passing by here?" And she was just laughing, and she was like, "I saw two like cat was passing by here," and like I'm just saying those are memories. And literally, my father literally he just demolished and built a new one. I don't like the new one, to be honest, because I like the old one, which has my footprints and where I lived through, and I really
Sure.
want to take my kids and show them and stuff like
Sure.
that. But like you're saying, financial perspective, of course, you need to make the right decision to improve your financial side of things. But like at the end of the day, I believe, like I always say, the first time. When you are a first-time home buyer, first home can't be your dream home. It's just a first home to get started. But like sometimes if you get a first home as your dream home, maybe I would say that can be your forever home, and you can use that equity or another form of the way to invest in different properties, but build a community around there would be an ideal. Because I see when I get to go to south side of Ajax and different places to the door knock, and I get to speak to the people who owns the property for 40, 50 years.
Mm.
And some people even said, we will only sell when they put us into the coffin and take it away from
Mhm.
here.
Mhm.
That actually sometimes I feel, I almost cried it. One lady was here, come very calmly outside and said, we're not going to leave from here. They're going to
Mhm.
be forever staying in this home. And I loved it because they have so much of memories in the street. They were like pointing at each house saying, oh, that, John, Pop, and all the names that they're calling. But these days, nobody knows anyone.
Mm.
We just we're living in a home like an island. So every time a new owner comes and someone or tenants comes, it's a different experience. I just wanted to ask one last final question. Um, like, what would you like to say if someone at your point wanted to start the journey? What advice would you wanted to share?
Yeah, I think I would definitely say, hey, home ownership is great, but do it in a financially responsible manner. Just because, like, having again seen maybe what has transpired in the last couple of years, is you don't want to buy something because you were chasing a dream without sort of the proper financial architecture behind you to support you, and whether that means emergency funds, that's foundation to the core. Hey, if you lose your job tomorrow, can you still sustain your home? If there's a major leak that's coming or major repair that has to be done, can you make sure that there is sufficient financial infrastructure to manage that process? Just because, like, I've seen, especially in the last 3-4 years, like, there's this in 2021 or 2022 during the peak, there was this false sense among people that, hey, real estate is one of these assets that's going to continue to go crazy up in value, and that means it's a great investment, and we should go into it blindly without understanding some of the negative impacts that can come with it. And I unfortunately have seen somebody who refied their first home to buy their second home. And I spoke to them a couple of years later, only to find out they've lost both homes because they were not able to keep up with the rising interest costs, right? So home ownership is great. In my opinion, it's whether there's an emotional piece aligned to it, because, like, I do believe in certain things. Sometimes from a financial perspective, it may seem like, hey, it's cheaper to rent rather than own, but I've come to senses, or I've come to a conclusion in certain things. Like, there are certain things that money can't buy, and the saving of that $500, I was going to say $500,000, saving of that $500 from a cash flow perspective may not be worthwhile to give up my child when growing up in this family home. So that I've come to senses with that. That being said, I would say make sure you do it in a responsible manner so that you don't end up losing your life savings,
Wow.
in this kind of thing. So as much as, there's finance involved, there's a human element and the emotional element involved, and that matters. But make sure, and I would support that personally. Like, even if it may be cheaper to rent, the human element that comes with ownership, I would support it, but do it in a financially responsible manner, because you don't want to lose out on everything else that you've built just because you wanted to buy this first home.
First one, absolutely a great point. It's a real financial advisor speaking. I, but like one question again. So at the end of the day, do you believe the home is a wants or needs?
I think it's a want. I say it's a want because it really is. Like, you can talk to somebody who is fully content living in a rental home because they don't have a mortgage attached to them, and they can leave and travel, and they can take their kids and go live in another country for 6 months if they want to. So that's a want.
Right.
So whether that's a want, and the other side is also a want. Like, I want to be able to build memories with my children in this house. So that's
Right.
also a want. So ultimately,
Right.
so the bottom line is it's a want.
Right.
But what is the want? Is
Right.
your want will be different than my want, right?
Absolutely.
So
Yes.
I have good friends who they refuse to buy a home just because they want the flexibility of being able to travel to another country and living there for 2 months in a year, to give their children a different perspective in life.
Right.
And and sometimes I think about it. I'm like, hey, that is a very neat experience. And
True.
sometimes when you have a $4,000 mortgage or a $3,000 mortgage attached to your name, you will feel guilty about leaving somewhere, leaving the home, paying the mortgage, and then going somewhere else and spending money for that as well. So,
Right.
but if you don't have that sort of attachment, then you're a little bit more free flowing in one way, shape, or form. So it depends on what is it that you ultimately want in life.
Yeah, it's all depend on the person who what they
Yeah,
want exactly.
absolutely.
It's a great conversation. Thank you so much, Chen,
Yeah, no
and
problem.
spending
It's my
your
pleasure.
valuable time. And I got so much. To be honest, it's very content podcast. I would say. I feel so happy and satisfied because someone who I always advocate towards because I'm a realtor, which is okay. But at the end of the day, I won't like. I always support the sensible home ownership. It's not like you need to buy a home.
Sure.
Buy it right and right once and don't do it so many times if you can't do it and don't look
Yeah.
at other people.
And like in full transparency, like you know, I'm an open book. Like I've made my fair share of mistakes for me to understand that process.
Right.
And like if you had asked me 5 years ago, my answer may have been different. If you had asked me during the peak of the market, I've learned my own fair share of mistakes, which has now allowed me to be a much better advisor to someone. But at the same time, when someone talks to you from life experiences, it's substantially different than talking about something from a theoretical perspective, in my
No,
opinion.
like when you say your experience, the risk tolerance, which is one of the important part that you have it in financial planning. I always say that most of the people who bought in 2021, 22 in the pandemic market, they never did their risk tolerance, so they
Sure.
don't know their what they can afford and what they can afford to lose, and they end up looking at that person. I still remember, and they were just competing in the market, and like. Competing, I don't know, just even they're looking at the interest rate, and for the variable interest rate, they were fighting for getting a variable interest rate. I'm like, you fighting for a fixed rate is okay, but like fighting for a variable, which is literally a name itself variable, what's the point of fighting? And it really went up to 5% up. So I totally get it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the person's financial decision, home investment is, and they have to make it right. And I always tell my, I mean, this is very important conversation. I would say, before even somebody is to speak to a realtor or even a mortgage broker, I highly recommend to sit down with a financial planner because it's your big lifetime decision to buying a home. It's your investment. So I would say first you have to sit down and open your book with your finance advisor, know your risk tolerance and what you can lose and what you can afford. That's the only way that you will know where you are at and where you want to be. So thank you so much for joining this podcast, and we'll catch up with the next one. Thank you. Thank you.